What's going on, you guys? It's Sag ADV, and today I'm going to be installing a YSS rear shock on a Honda CRF250L Rally, as well as providing my initial thoughts on how it performs on the bike. Here's a list of the tools you will need to complete the installation. First, start off by removing both plastics on the rear of the bike. The seat removal is not necessary, however I chose to do so. Next, you will need to remove your rear brake reservoir using a 10mm. Here, on the left side of the bike behind the wire bundle, you can see the top shock mount bolt and nut. Here you can see the wrench resting itself on the 17mm nut. It should hold itself in place while you rotate the bolt on the other side. Just be careful it doesn't pinch anything. Using your socket wrench and extension and a 14mm, loosen the upper shock mount bolt. Make sure you keep the upper shock mount hardware together. It is the only one that has a washer. When disconnecting the lower linkage, you will need to remove this hardware and this hardware. Remove the hardware and keep it together. At this point, your rear shock is completely disconnected. Lift up on the swing arm and pull the shock through the bottom. When you receive your new YSS shock, you will receive the adjustment tool, your warranty card, instructions, and a few stickers. As you can see, the YSS shock is very well machined. Here we have the YSS shock and the stock shock side by side for a comparison. Notice that the YSS shock is threaded on one side of the lower mount. I like to install things the way that they came out, so the threaded side will need to be on the left side of the bike in order for the 14mm bolt to thread in the same way that it was removed. Now it is time to install the new YSS shock. To install, you will have to lift the rear swing arm like you did to remove it. It is not shown here, but I have a few 2x4s under the rear wheel to help lift the swing arm. Place the 14mm mount bolt through the shock mount and the shock. Now it is time to install the washer. This process can be a bit tricky because you don't have a lot of room to work with. If your fingers are too big, then a magnet can be used. Now thread the nut onto the bolt. This is easier said than done and will probably take a few tries. This step is completely optional, however I chose to add a little grease onto my linkage bolts, just like Woodsman Outdoors did in his install video. Now it is time to reconnect the lower linkage. You will need to move the swing arm up and down a bit in order to get the holes to line up. Now tighten the lower linkage bolts and the upper shock mount bolt. For some reason, I didn't capture tightening the upper shock bolt, so make sure you do it. And now your install is all done. Make sure you give everything that you touched a good once over and reinstall your plastics. To give you an idea of how this shock affects the overall height and sag of the bike, I have included a few clips of some measurements I took. Alright, so this review isn't going to be like an in-depth review to it because I haven't had a whole lot of time to really test out the shock yet. However, it's just going to kind of be a first impressions review, and so far I love it. This shock is so much better than the stock one that comes on this bike. I had adjusted the preload on the stock shock all the way up, and it still just, it wasn't enough. I weigh about 190, 195 pounds, somewhere around in there, and it just wasn't holding up to my weight, along with the luggage that I carry. It makes the bike feel so much more planted, especially when you're standing up. I've taken it on a slight little trail, and it wasn't nearly as bouncy as the stock shock is. That stock shock just felt awful. It did not, I didn't even realize how bad it was until I rode one of my buddy's bikes, and that bike felt like I was riding a 2x4. The suspension had no give on it whatsoever, and this thing felt like I was riding on a cloud. Which, I mean, if you're cruising the road is nice, but if you want to do any off-roading, like any serious off-roading on this bike, you're gonna bottom out the shocks if you weigh over 150 pounds. I'd be willing to guess that even people 150 pounds will bottom out this bike, or bottom out this shock and the front forks. The front forks are my next upgrade, so stay tuned for that video as well. Hey, look, a boat. I can't really describe how I feel about it in depth. This is going to be kind of a short little review. All I can say is I paid $384 for this, shipped from Biker Bits, and it was outfitted for my weight for that price, and I am beyond happy with it. I couldn't justify the Öhlins. I'm sure it's a great product. I just personally could not justify it. The shock is adjustable too. I have not adjusted it, and I probably don't plan on it, at least not yet anyway. But
there are some parameters on it in which you can adjust. I posted before what the difference was between the sag of the stock and the aftermarket YSS Shock, so that should give you a little bit of an idea of what kind of you're getting into. I just wanted to give kind of a simple comparison and kind of my initial afterthoughts. So stick around for the long-term review. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, comment, and thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.